Hi again then guys, and welcome back to my overall review series for the Gran Turismo Sport closed beta. And this particular episode, if you will, of the review is one which I hadn't initially planned to do. I had, then I hadn't, and now I've done it. So, what's going on? Well, this is the 1.06 patch. Of course, I covered the 1.05 and some of the changes that were in there. This patch is also a very large one. It's around 16 gig. It took a fair while to download, just like the last one did. And it has some interesting rumours and some interesting changes associated with it. And originally I had planned to cover the changes that had been done. That was before downloading it. Once I downloaded it though, and had the opportunity to play on the game a little bit, the changes that I did actually notice didn't seem that significant. They weren't bad or meaningless, but they just weren't necessarily big enough to make an entire review video for. Because as many of you guys know, I don't make videos just for the sake of making them. I want it to offer interesting information that people need to know. However, I was getting a lot of requests from you guys for another part of the GT Sport Beta review covering the changes that are there, and even the ones which aren't necessarily as big. So, that's what we're here for. So what kind of changes are in the new update? Well, one of the primary ones that I did notice was the fluidity of the camera. Especially in cockpit mode, you can look around the cockpit mode using, depending on the buttons you choose, the right analog stick, and it does it in a much more fluid way. Before, it was very jagged. The driver's head would bounce around the cockpit when you look around in a very non-fluid way, basically. Then they updated it in the 1.05 patch and it became much smoother, but also with a little bit of a delay, which is kind of better, but not quite what you'd want it to be. With this update, they've brought it up to speed a little bit more. It's more fluid to the movements of the analog stick, if of course you're using a controller, as I do, and it does feel a lot better. You can look around inside the car much better than before, and that will lend itself towards stuff like head tracking, VR tech later on down the line, no doubt. There were also some supposed changes in stuff like physics, crash damage, car sounds, all that kind of good stuff, and that's always great things to hear for Gran Turismo, but to be honest, that was one of the main reasons why I hadn't planned to make this video, because the changes that are there aren't that big. They're not bad changes, it certainly hasn't got worse, but the physics aren't that much different to what they were before. Not for my driving style anyway. I haven't really noticed much of a change. Maybe the cars are a little bit more tail happy, but not much. They're fairly similar to what they were before, which is pretty good. I like the 1.05 changes, so it's good to see that they're on a similar track to that. As far as the audio changes go, they are far more subtle. I think I've noticed some changes in the wind noise, especially in cockpit cam with, for instance, the open-top Volkswagen Vision GT car, but I'm not sure if that's psychosomatic or if it actually has changed, or if I'm just hearing changes because I want to hear something new, whereas it was actually there before anyway. So I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and check older footage to see if you can still hear that kind of thing. But supposedly there are car sound changes, but as I said, I haven't really noticed a huge difference there. Some of the cars already sounded pretty good anyway, like the FT1, the Peugeot VGT and a couple of others. Other ones sound a little bit more generic, like the Evo, the Impreza, both in road and racing forms. They don't sound bad, they're just not that loud and not very distinct. And as far as other changes go, they seem at least to be more geared towards the online stuff, such as, for instance, the algorithm based around the driver rating system, sportsmanship ratings, that kind of thing. And although I haven't personally had a huge chance to race online since the update a couple of days ago, it's always a good thing. If you can refine that kind of system, make it work better, make it more adaptive from driver to driver, not just a blanket thing, it can only be a good thing. And according to the update details and various other reports from other people, there are a couple of undocumented changes as well. I've had a look around the menus at the cars, stuff like that, and to be honest, I haven't really noticed many new things that aren't documented, if any, that stand out that much. You are, though, now able to turn off the flashing brake indicator, which is cool because most of us don't need that, whereas before you couldn't do that, now you can. That's always a good thing. To have more control over what you do and don't want to see on the screen is never a bad thing, of course. And as far as the rumours of Porsche being included in this patch in the garage or as winnable vehicles, well, maybe they are. I personally haven't seen any, I haven't won any. I've won a car every day since the beta was released and there are no Porsches in sight. So maybe for some people it has, but for me it certainly hasn't. Overall then, as I mentioned, the changes in this newer update, at least for me personally, haven't been huge. It's more subtle refinements here and there, and considering that, of course, it's still far from being a released game, it's not surprising that they continue to make those refinements. I think one of the things that I would have liked to have seen changed, which still hasn't been, is something which was there originally, but then it was taken out, and I'm not sure why. And that is the 360-degree rotational camera around the car, especially in chase cam. You can still do that in hood cam and in bumper cam. You can look all the way around the car, which is cool. It gives you a much better depth of field for people coming past you, behind, in front. But in cockpit cam, of course, you don't have that, because the driver would be from The Exorcist if you could do that. But looking around in chase cam was a lot better before. You could swivel around the car and see the vehicle, see people around you much better, whereas now, at least from what I've seen in controller setups, and I've tried to change it, you cannot look to the side of the car at all in chase cam. And I know many people don't use chase cam, but many people do as well, and I'm one of them. I like to look at the car while I'm driving. So not having that anymore is a shame. You can still, of course, look behind and obviously look forward, but not having left and right, and certainly not having the full 360 thing, is kind of a strange thing to take out when it did have it there originally. It was very jarring, the way it would jump around the car, but surely they could have smoothed that out like they did with the cockpit cam. But either way, it's still all on the up and up. Certainly nothing's got worse since this update, and it's more minor things, as I mentioned. So, overall, if you would like to see more GT Sport content and you are new to the channel, as I said, I have done other parts in this series, 8 other preceding parts covering physics, graphics, car sounds, all that kind of good stuff. And if you'd like more GT Sport content every week, then stick around on the channel, because every week I do at least one Gran Turismo Sport car review for the new vehicles in the game. So, as I said, stick around on the channel if that interests you, and of course content for Gran Turismo 6, Gran Turismo 2, and various other games as well, then you can find that all here. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.